This is a story about men and women working to safeguard your streets. Welcome to this special edition of Behind the Silver Badge. On this special edition, we'll take you back 10 years and show you how the Miami-Dade Police Department worked together during a very difficult time. Throughout the day, winds and seas increased. Repeated warnings echoed over every radio and television station, advising residents of what was coming. The shutters were in place, the cars packed, and evacuations begun. Hurricane Andrew was on the way, and South Floridians were prepared, or so they thought. As it turned out, nothing could have prepared South Floridians for what was to come. Hurricane Andrew would prove to be one of the strongest and most devastating hurricanes ever to strike the United States. The National Hurricane Center first noticed what was to become Andrew as a tropical wave moving off the coast of Africa in mid-August 1992. They monitored the action of this tropical storm, but were unaware of the fury that it would unleash on South Florida. Hurricane watches covered much of South Florida's east coast on the evening of August 22nd. The next morning, the watches were upgraded to warnings as Andrew drew closer. It soon became clear that the violent hurricane would threaten South Florida and would ultimately target the heart of Miami. Meanwhile, the Miami-Dade Police Department, then headed by Director Fred Taylor, had a plan ready for what would become the most intensive relief effort to ever face the police department.
We have a set standard procedures that we go through. Of course, the bad thing was we hadn't had really a storm here in 27 years. I think in 1965 was the last storm. We had some close misses where we were all set to go, and then they veered away. So there weren't a lot of people in the department that had ever been through one of those storms. I think I was in my third year in 1965 when we had our last one. So, and at that time I was an officer on the street, so I didn't really know much about how do you run a department during the course of a storm. But we have some standard procedures that we go through, and that's to help people to evacuate them from the low flood areas, to make sure those who have special needs get to the places that they need to be to get the kind of care that they need. You have the shelters that you have to get ready, the schools, you have to put the officers there to make sure that they're secure and safe. You have to make sure the boats get through and get put away and that the folks get home. So you have a lot to do before a storm. So the important thing is that timing. You've got to wait till you know the storm is going to be here, at what time, so that you can take the manpower that you have and you can put most of them to work prior to the storm, because you don't want them working during the storm. You want them to go home, you want them to be safe, you want them to be able to come back on the street when the storm is gone.
Thousands of people spent those few hours boarding up windows and standing in lines, waiting for groceries and other supplies. People besieged shelters and hospitals. Northbound highways were packed with cars as evacuation orders went into effect. However, hundreds of residents refused to evacuate, determined to protect their property. Miami-Dade police officers arrived at specific locations to encourage the elderly living in evacuation zones to leave their homes.
Well, no, nothing's wrong. They just want to tell you about the hurricane.
I know the hurricane is here, and I'm going to stay.
You understand, sir, that we can arrange to have you transported to a safe place.
I'm going to stay.
You know the severity of the storm, right? That it's a very, very big volume.
I know. Well, the house is not going to collapse.
It would soon become clear that it was too late for preparations. winds were progressively increasing. By 3 a.m. on August 24th, Andrew hammered South Florida. Mercifully, Hurricane Andrew's forward speed pushed the storm through South Florida in only 4 hours. As the storm subsided, residents slowly came out from the ruins to see what devastation the storm had caused. What they found was unlike anything they had ever experienced in their lives. Andrew had completely leveled their neighborhoods, scattering their belongings and changing their lives forever. For many, nothing was left.
And it looked devastating. But it was nothing like going over it yourself and in a personal look. I mean, once you got south of 152nd Street, you couldn't even, once you flew for a minute or two, you didn't know where you were at. I mean, it was that bad.
We went down south, and honestly, it was, the landmarks were gone. I mean, I had been division chief on the south end for about 3 years, and then the district manager for 2. And it was so funny, I did not even know where I was.
Andrew's primary target was the city of Homestead and the Cutler Ridge area. The hurricane flattened 99% of the area's mobile homes, as well as thousands of houses. Travel through the town was nearly impossible.
Nothing like this one. This thing was something. I mean, I heard the wind howl, you know, with a little creaky sound. But this thing sounds like a freight train, man. You know that. And when it did, the whole building would shake. Windows and everything. They would just get there and just, you know, just stay there.
Man, last night about 3 o'clock, all the windows blew out. And see those windows, the wind was coming from this way. So those doors right there would close, and it took the porch. And then it took that front door. And from then, it just went on, so all up went up.
Andrew's wind caused most of the damage in Homestead, but closer to the shoreline, both wind and water contributed to the devastation. According to reports, Andrew destroyed 25,000 homes and significantly damaged more than 100,000 others in South Florida. Recovery from Andrew would be slow. In the days immediately following Andrew, tens of thousands of citizens faced unsanitary and uncomfortable living conditions with no power and a very limited supply of fresh food and water.
The next thing we had to be concerned about was people getting water, getting them food, because they couldn't come out, and they were in their homes that were torn down. So they were in really a bad way. So we had to set up little mini camps. The federal government helped a lot. We got banks that actually went out and got in these facilities and would give people money. It was quite a time. It was something that it's like almost being in a refugee area. I mean, you had to do all the kinds of things that you would do to support refugees if they came across the border or something, because they had nothing. They had no food, they had no water, they had no way to take care of themselves, they didn't have any money, they couldn't run their cars. I mean, they were really in dire straits.
Miami-Dade police officers became victims as well. Many officers who needed to report to their South End districts were left without homes, food, water, or any communication with the outside world. It became apparent that the Miami-Dade Police Department was suffering.
And I went through Vietnam, okay? I was just as afraid the other night as I was in Vietnam when I was getting shelled, okay? So, when I came out, I'm like her. We were real fortunate.
Most of the Cutler Ridge Police District was destroyed, but the officers' call to duty and their sense of community was instrumental in helping with the relief efforts.
Well, I spent the storm in my car and almost tipped over, so that was an ordeal. 152 and 153, I lost my house. I got my kids somewhere, and I'm like waiting to see where I'm going to go, a hotel or something. My husband, he's the PO too, police officer over at Station 8. And right now we're like homeless, and the house is demolished.
They went out and they were helping the people every day, and they helped themselves. And I think it brought out the best, and really brought out the best in the human spirit, I think. I mean, from what I could see, from the support that we got from around the nation, around the world, and from what came inside. I mean, people came to work when they were hurting themselves, but they thought of other people first, and it was just something that you have to experience.
It's pretty bad. I moved. Hopefully, I get the wife and kids out of here. I got one roof over the dining room area, and a family room, and a little bit of bath water. And that's about it. But I'll do. As long as the family's out of the way, I can hang with it. I'm here 12, 15 hours a day anyway, working, so it's good. Are you working? We'll make it. Hopefully.
We don't have a backside.
I got a record
but we'd like the information. If someone could run it to us, it would help.
Assistant Director Frank Bonney was the Cutler Ridge major at the time. It was the worst hit police district in Dade County.
We came to this building, was a disaster, and a portion of the staff got the building running, a portion of us tried to manage the resources we had. First thing we had to do was decide the most important thing, and that was it. We felt that if the disaster looked like it did where we could see, it's likely to be at least that bad or worse in these remote areas where we can't access and get immediate help.
We had established prior to the storm, we call it the POET. It's a trust fund set aside to help cops in times of need, and what greater time of need than this? So what they did was we immediately went out and we bought building supplies, we bought food, water, all those other kinds of things. And in addition to that, we began to receive in from around the country water and food and money and a lot of things, and we had to have a way to channel this to see that it got to the officer on the street so that he could stay on the job and he could take care of his family. It was a great thing. It was one of the most satisfying things in my life was what POET did during that storm to help out the cops who needed it.
Today we've got about 6 moving vans. We're moving people out of their condition. They went down and they took their squad cars, went to individual homes. Each moving van showed up with about 25 deputies in uniform. They went in and moved people in about 45 minutes. And guys were calling up and they had tears in their eyes because this service was available to them. That's the type of thing we're trying to do. Get the people the relief so they can take a breather and say, hey, you know, I am worth something. My life can carry on. And they can get back into the field.
Well, at that time, POAT was just getting started, so Director Taylor at the time asked me to assist with whatever we could with employee assistance, right, to see what we can do with the officers that were having problems. I mean, there's nightmare stories about this. We went out there and started assisting officers with the rebuilding of their homes.
Well, when you get it, give me a call, and then what we'll do is we're going to move it to somebody else's house.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
See you later.
I had administrative services, so basically what we did was to coordinate all the relief that came into Dade County. In fact, Training Bureau became like the storehouse, and then Cutler Ridge was another storehouse where we took the supplies there, and then they were disseminated to those that needed it.
Goods donated by the public would be sorted and sent out through convoys, led by Miami-Dade Police Department officers, to areas that were damaged by Hurricane Andrew's passing, specifically Homestead, Florida City, and Perrine.
Anytime you have a crisis, you just manage. I think everybody rises to the height, and you just come up with management ideas to how to manage something like this and how to provide the services. What we ended up doing was assembling a team very quickly. I guess it was 2 days ago now, and we're able to pick some of the best organized people we know and let them go to work.
To aid in the recovery efforts, the U.S. military deployed some 22,000 National Guard troops in what was one of the largest military relief operations in U.S. history. Rows of tents sprung up where houses and trailers once stood, and long lines of people waited hours for hot meals.
And then, almost immediately, all the police departments around the state began to send us a lot of officers. You know, so we had to set up administratively a way to accept them into the department, get them assigned, get them someplace to live. So we had these hundreds of officers that came to assist us that we had never done that before, so we had to find a way, and we had to find meaningful work for them to do.
Other agencies were calling us, asking us what did we need, and we told them we needed all manner of relief supplies. And within 24 hours, we had our first truckload of relief supplies intended for police officers come in. And it's been a steady avalanche of help from all over the country since then. It's really been a heartwarming experience to see the outpouring of help.
Presently, we have approximately 305 officers who are actually camped or staying in the locker rooms here at the stadium. All the officers here are from Florida, and just about any part of Florida. We have them all the way up from Jacksonville. We have them, some officers from Broward County, different municipalities and such.
I know how hectic it's been and how many things actually are going on and all, and it seems like in the midst of all that Metro-Dade has really gone out of their way to try to treat the people that are visiting, the visiting officers well.
So we had an operation just to get the cops back out on the street, the ones that didn't have homes anymore, so we had to take care of them. Take care of all these cops are on the street. And within a week or two, they were from all over the country. It was amazing the help that we got. So I don't think we could have made it through without that help. And of course, we always, a lot of people took vacations and came down here to work.
The Miami-Dade Police Department efficiently organized itself. More officers were assigned to the district affected most by the hurricane, while other police districts took on additional calls for service from surrounding areas.
I just got here. They say some guys came storming through. They almost hit a little girl in the middle of the road. They got the little girl all the way. Once they got the little girl, the family got the little girl all the way. These guys got out of the truck and started swinging on the family. Started beating up on the family, you know?
Where's this family?
They're over there. They're beating up over there.
They're down the street?
Yeah, it's a husband and wife, I think.
Okay, is anybody with them already? Or?
Yeah, they got friends and family over there.
Any police officers with them?
There was an off-duty police officer with them.
Calls of service still had to be answered, and in doing so, you might see someone that needed a gallon of water, and we gave it to them. I mean, we got a lot of supplies that would be able to help a lot of folks. With that being the case, the police department was one of the vehicles for delivering that service. And we did a good job on doing that. Not only did we enforce the law, but we enforced it with a sense of humanity.
Out of adversity came positive changes in South Florida, and especially within the Miami-Dade Police Department.
I think we learned that the skills of the folks that we had were really greater than what we had thought, that they were very dedicated. We learned that you can do anything. I mean, this was really a disaster. I mean, this is something that we didn't even have any idea how we were going to be able to deal with, but yet we did it. And by people working together as a team, getting things done little by little, there weren't any big steps there. It was a little thing here and a little thing there. Get this done, get this thing, put the lights back on, the phones, clear the streets, rebuild the homes. It was a thing that took time, and we had the patience to do that. And people stuck at that. I mean, you're talking about folks that work 16 hours a day, 6-7 days a week for a long time. They gave a lot of them, so.
Officials made mandatory changes to the local building codes in an effort to prevent, or at least lessen, the damage from future storms.
One of the other things that come out of Hurricane Andrew was the building department realized how shoddy inspections and construction methods were, and they implemented their own codes in Dade County. By doing that, the rest of the state picked up on it, and at the time, Director Charlie Danger confronted the governor and requested that we implemented a one building code, and the Dade County model that he had somewhat put together with his staff was taken as the Dade County model, which started this year in year 2002 in January. We were under one state building code, so all the builders in Dade County, in the state of Florida, can work anywhere, and there is no excuse that they didn't know the codes of the area. Everybody's under the same code.
One of the things that occurred with Hurricane Andrew, and so many officers had, in the span of maybe a night, they're without home. they lived through that hurricane firsthand. Cars were lifted up and officers were actually scared. And then all of a sudden, you get a department as large as we are coming together to help each other, which was fascinating, but it showed you that we do have empathy, and it does play out. With that occurring, it brought us together, and maybe we'll stick together as opposed to sort of going back to how we used to do things. I don't think that will ever happen again. I think it brought us together as a family.
I think once you've been through a situation like that, you're prepared almost to do anything. I mean, nothing can surprise you. You know, this is one of the great things about going through things. I mean, when you look back, you learn so much. And there's so many skilled people here, folks who have been through it, who have done it, who know how to plan, who know how to organize, you know, and have the caring for the folks that they're going to deal with. So, you know, the thing we learned was that, you know, like I said before, I think you can get by, if you stick together, you can get by most, the worst disasters.
The destruction caused by Hurricane Andrew shocked the nation. The storm caused $25 billion in damage in Miami-Dade County alone. It destroyed or damaged over 125,000 homes and left hundreds of thousands of people homeless. While the Miami-Dade Police Department was greatly affected by Hurricane Andrew, its officers responded to the challenges of helping their community recover from devastation. Their tireless dedication in the face of such adversity left the department and the people they serve stronger and more united than ever. On August 21st, 2002, almost 10 years to the day that Andrew struck South Florida, new analysis of wind data has prompted the announcement that Andrew was a Category 5 storm. Only 3 have ever hit the United States. This announcement by hurricane scientists comes as little surprise, though, to those who lived through that furious night.
Interested in a career in law enforcement? Call the Miami-Dade Police Department at 305-471-1945 or visit our website at www.mdpd.com.
Thanks for joining us on this edition of Behind the Silver Badge.